Hey guys, Chris here from Carolot Farm. I want to say welcome, happy fall. Today is technically the first day of October, so we're actually well into fall, but I want to kind of give you some updates on things that happened in September, changes we've made, modifications, and actually some kind of ideas of where we're heading for the winter and some things that we have planned. So let me get started. One of the first things I want to mention is what my horses are currently eating, because that is something that we have kind of constantly been modifying and amending as the year progresses. Sweetheart, I'll start with her. She is still getting a half a cup of Triple Crown Senior moistened, and she's now getting this twice a day. She's getting this with the addition of a pound of teff hay pellets. The reason she's getting the hay pellets, and these do need to be soaked, you have to be very mindful about that. The reason she is getting the hay pellets is because for the last, I want to say 2 to 3 weeks, starting around the middle of September, we took her completely off of loose hay. And that was because she was beginning to have another mild flare-up. And once again, I was suspecting that maybe the hay was causing some of her issues, and it just seemed to be a potential trigger that once again we could take out, and then we were able to make that modification by adding in the hay pellets. And that does seem to be working well for her. I'm very happy to report. I did mention that Sweetheart is getting her Triple Crown Senior twice a day, and she is also getting her hay pellets twice a day. So she is coming in for breakfast and for dinner. I tend to try to feed the horses somewhere between 8 and 9 in the morning, and usually between 4 and 5 in the afternoon. I know that's not like a full 12-hour stretch, but because of something else that we were doing, it'll make a little more sense in a minute. So she is getting fed twice a day, and she is getting the Triple Crown Senior plus the hay stretcher. And the reason we increased her Triple Crown Senior to twice a day was because I did feel like she was beginning to drop a little bit of weight. It's something we want to be very mindful of with the horses. We don't want anyone to be thin going into winter. We don't want them to be overweight. So when I noticed that she was just feeling a little thin on her top line, we went ahead and added in that little bit of extra Triple Crown Senior in her evening meal. The next horse I'll talk about will be Lady. Lady, like Sweetheart, comes in and she gets fed twice a day. She's also eating her Triple Crown Senior, but she is getting about 3/4 of a pound. When we transitioned her off of her grain that the rescue was giving her onto the Triple Crown Senior, I was watching her weight very closely. She seems to be holding steady and still gaining a little, which is wonderful. And so I've kept her at 3/4 of a pound. But if it looks like she needs a little more as winter approaches, we can very easily increase this amount, and then she could be getting a little more both morning and night. But she is still getting 2 meals a day, and we are soaking her feed just like we are Sweetheart's, and she's doing really well. And that brings me now to the 3 youngsters. We have Snuggles, who you can see back here behind me, Rockstar, and Shenanigans. And the 3 of them are currently splitting a half a cup of Triple Crown Senior once a day. Rocky used to get a half a cup himself, the whole thing, and then his weight looked really good, and I wanted to kind of omit the grain, but earlier in the summer when we completely tried to take out his grain, even though we did so very, very slowly and gradually, he had a mild colic on us. And so I do feel like he's super sensitive. And so he is really just getting like a little token handful just to kind of like satisfy his metabolism and to hopefully keep everything just, happy and relaxed and chugging along. So the 3 of them actually share that 1/2 a cup, and by the time you do that, I mean, they're literally getting like a handful. So that's working well for them. Everyone's weight is looking really good, and so that covers everyone's grain, which leads us to what the hay situation is. Off again, on again. Hay for Sweetheart seems to be par for the course these days. We did once again decide to take her off of hay because she was having another flare-up and I couldn't find anything else that was different. And so we decided to omit her hay. This was around the middle of September. And I decided to go ahead and completely take her off hay. And that's when I added in the hay pellets. And I want to do that for a month trial of just not giving her any loose hay to see how her asthma flare-ups do and to see if we can continue to keep things quiet. Because she needed a companion though, because I was then separating her out from the others, I put Snuggles with her. They're really good buddies. They've been together before in a similar situation. And because Snuggles' weight was looking really good, I knew that she would be okay with a little bit less free choice hay, but she is still getting hay twice a day. I do bring her into the feedlot here when Sweetheart comes in for her breakfast. And Snuggles gets a flake of hay in the morning and a flake of hay in the evening. And that's why I bring them in a little early, closer to like 4 or 5, because I want to give her as much time as she would like to eat on that flake of hay, really before it gets dark, so I can get everyone settled into their fields. So that's one reason why dinner is a little earlier than you might ideally want to give it. But everyone's doing well, and omitting hay for Sweetheart seems to be working pretty good these days. We did pick up 50 bales of hay just a few weeks ago, and so our small hay barn is relatively full. We have a couple of cat beds here and one up top. So this should last us pretty well into the winter. We'll also be picking up a couple of round bales from a good friend who does some horse quality hay. And the idea is that, you know, we'll be unpeeling those and feeding that as loose hay if and when we need it. So right now we have the squares. This is what we're feeding. Snuggles, I told you, gets a flake in the morning and a flake at night. And then she's allowed to eat on that for really as long as she wants. Usually she cleans it up pretty good. And then whatever she doesn't eat, I give the boys and lady access to. And they are also getting about 2 flakes in the morning and 2 flakes at night. However, things are always changing. Now that it's the 1st of October and we're turning the horses out into that side paddock where there's a little more grass, this morning they didn't get their hay. Snuggles was able to eat on her flake of hay for a while, but then it was time to turn everyone out. And so you can see there's still quite a bit of hay in that feedlot behind me. She'll come back in and get to eat on that later. But now that they're eating more grass, I'm not giving them as much morning hay, but they're still getting evening hay. So it's always this constant, you know, tweaking and modification that's being made to everything around the farm. But grass is always superior if you have it and if your horses can tolerate it. So that is something we're working on. Each month, I do try to keep track of how many square bales we have fed, because what I'm really trying to do in this year of documentation is to determine just how much these minis are eating, because it was something that I really didn't have a sense of, only having large horses in the past. And so it's looking like my little minis, my 5 minis, went through about 5 bales of hay in June, 8 bales in the month of July, 8 more bales in August, and then we did go up to 9 bales of hay in the month of September. And I imagine the hay totals will continue to rise, especially as the grass begins to dry up again heading into winter. But we have a couple of things that I want to go and show you now that we're hoping might be able to help supplement our hay. I should also mention that not only was the hay total a little higher in September, we actually only had 4 horses that were eating on it because Sweetheart started getting her hay pellets around the middle of the month. So if she had been getting hay, loose hay like everyone else, I imagine that number 9 bale number could probably have been at least 1 if not 2 bales higher, because, you know, 9 bales divided by 4 horses, right? If you take Sweetheart out of the equation, that's over 2 bales a horse for the month. So, you know, every month is different, but it does look like on average these horses are eating anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 bales of hay per month a piece, and those numbers can add up pretty quick. Can you guess where we are? This is that lovely front field that sits just in front of my house. You know, we didn't want to put the minis out here initially because I felt it was just way too much grass for them. But they have shown that they have done really, really well on the grass that we have in our back paddocks. And with winter coming and with paddocks back there that really do need to rest and be amended, we are beginning to work on sectioning off this front field so that we'll have smaller paddock areas that we can then turn the minis out on. So let me see if I can show you a little more about what we have going on. Behind me here, you can see where we have mowed across the width of the field, and this is going to be where our fence line will go. It will first be a temporary fence line. We're going to use electric wire fencing, and again, it will run the full width of the front field, and it looks like it's going to span about 10 fence post widths, and that is roughly around a fifth of this front field. So we'll enclose this front end for the horses to have a new paddock to graze upon. And we will also, you can see we've taken down some fence boards here. We will also open up access to a third of this larger run-in. You know, we're going to section it off so that they can't have access to the tractor or anything else that is stored in the other two bays. But that will be plenty of shelter for them. They'll have a nice turnout with more grass, because their back paddocks really do need to rest and recover now. But they've done a really, really good job back there. You know, the horses have been very comfortable and very content. They've stayed healthy on the grass for the last, I think it's been 11 months. You know, we brought them home October 2024, well, October 31st, Halloween 2024. So they've proven that they are able to tolerate being out on grass as long as we're able to really monitor them and, you know, make sure that everyone is remaining comfortable. So this is new, this will be a change, but it just makes sense to try because the horses have done so well thus far. And we want to see if we can't, again, better utilize our spaces and just, you know, the grass that we have. There's no sense in feeding tons of hay if we have this grass, assuming the horses can stay comfortable on it. That's the big thing. We have to watch them really, really closely. But we are hoping that in the coming weeks, we'll be able to put a couple of the minis out here. I'm not sure if all of them will come out here. It might just be the youngsters initially. I did mention that I thought the boys might come out here initially. I think Lady could probably come out here and do pretty well. She doesn't seem to be eating hay very efficiently. I do think that her teeth are not great, so grass is better for her than hay. But my concern primarily is about Sweetheart because we still have, I don't know if you can see it, we still have this purple slime mold. It's a fungus that is growing on some of our grass out here in the front field. I believe it's primarily because the grass is pretty thick, it's pretty thatchy, and there's just a lot of moisture that builds up, which is kind of the perfect breeding conditions for this purple slime mold. Now, it's non-toxic, it's not supposed to be harmful. However, if you have asthma or if your horse has asthma, like Sweetheart, or some sort of breathing condition, any kind of mold spores or fungus can cause a reaction. So I don't want to turn her out here for as long as I still see signs of that slime mold. I was reading it should dry up and go away as, you know, the seasons progress and the field kind of, you know, dries out. But the last thing I want is to put her out here and then to cause a really big flare up because I put her on a known, you know, allergen or you know, trigger. So again, it's the old what to do if Sweetheart can't come out here, who is her companion? Because I do think some of the horses could really, really benefit from being out here. So, you know, time will tell, but I do have concerns about Sweetheart coming out here. There is also this kind of connecting space. It's between the back field and the front field that I was just showing you. This area sits just beside kind of our front yard area, and we have thought about enclosing this perhaps this fall as well, and that way it will be kind of a connecting paddock from where the horses currently are to the front field. And it might be that Sweetheart can be in this side paddock if the other horses are turned out in the front field, assuming there's still that slime mold. I have not seen any signs of the slime mold in this side area. The slope of the land is pretty great, so everything runs off, and it does not seem to have as much moisture that kind of can build up. The grass and all is also not as good. It's not as thatchy, so that could be another thing for Sweetheart, is to enclose the side paddock. We would of course have to pull the old bush hogs and finishing mowers out of here, but that is one more thing that we have on the potential to-do list. I do want to just mention that everyone is doing really well together. After we originally integrated the whole herd around the first part of September, we then fairly soon after that did go back to separating them, and Lady was back with the boys so that Snuggles could be separated with Sweetheart in the back there. But whenever we do reintroduce everyone, you know, such as today when they're grazing, they do really well. And so that just tells me that everyone was able to kind of find their place, and they're feeling comfortable and confident with their pasture mates. So I just wanted to share that little bit because we had hoped that everyone would stay together, but just with Sweetheart's breathing issues, we have still needed to kind of tease small groups out at times. So, but that's the update on the herd and how they're all doing. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have enjoyed this, September recap and sort of the preview of what's to come in October. Everyone's doing super well. I'm happy to report, but I do need to bring them in off the grass. So have a great rest of your day. Check back soon, and we hope to see you in the future. Bye, guys.